everyone. Very good afternoon, morning, or evening, wherever you are in this global village. Welcome to the virtual happy hour experience with the Drunken Grape. I'm your host, Rob. We have a brilliant guest today. He is a great friend of mine. He is a tech expert with the product and branding component in particular, which is critical in the world today. And with the theme of extraordinary drinks with extraordinary people, he's a bourbon expert, and I'm a huge fan. This guy knows tons about bourbon, scotch, just about everything that sits in a barrel called whiskey. Without further delay, we're going to introduce our guest, Zach Mesler. Zach, how you doing today?
Hey, Rob. I'm great. How are you? I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I mean, anytime we can get some great people on set, and, the theme of the show is to bring about different types of personalities in different industries, but one common theme is in place, and they must enjoy the alcoholic beverage world in some capacity. Otherwise,
the adult beverage.
Yes. Otherwise, this would be bullshit. It's not a happy hour otherwise, right? It'd be like a safe place for non-drinkers, and it's just, well, this show's not for you if that's the case, but that's okay. It's not for everybody. And obviously, myself immersed in the alcoholic world, it's always a joy to talk about with other people who have considerable insight. And I know we've chatted before, and we'll get into that. And I know you have a depth of knowledge in bourbon and whiskey that really surpasses most people by far. It's its own specialty. People think sommelier, they think wine, wine, wine. Don't even realize there's beer sommeliers out there through Prud'Homme, which is the program I went through, or Cicerone, which is the American version. And alongside that, there are spirits and whiskey experts. And really, whiskey and bourbon drive the machine in the spirit world. They're the most coveted spirits. They're the most expensive to acquire. They're often, and they're, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're actually getting more difficult, not easier to acquire, as the world finds its thirst and appetite for it, and supplies are shortening because the minimum aging component for this is 3 years. And I mean, you got to store that for a minimum of 3 years. And often people won't even look at it unless it's at least 10 or 12 years aged.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a price spike. You definitely see the cost of this stuff starting to rise, and you found people who become enthusiasts, and so you can't find some stuff. You hear the term allocated whiskey or allocated bourbon, and that means that there's only a certain amount, and each store or a certain store will only get a certain amount. And so, at least in the States, you start to see these lotteries. And it's not a lottery to win the bottle. It's a lottery for the right to buy the bottle.
Wow. So it's like buying it in advance en primeur, kind of like what they do in Burgundy with wine in a lot of cases. Some of these chateaus are so coveted that you actually buy the wine as it's going into the barrel. And it's called en primeur.
Wow.
So you save some money. It sits there and ages for 2-3 years on average, and may bottle age for a while afterwards, but you're saving money. And often the brokerage houses buy it this way because they're going to sell it and trade it later. And there are futures for wine, and I believe there's futures for whiskey and scotch too.
There's definitely futures for bourbon for sure. I mean, even if it's stuff that's already bottled, there are people that invest in it and buy it. Before we jumped on the call, I was telling you about a bottle that I have that it's really a collector's item now because it's the last year of a wax top of a particular bottle that's very popular. It's a very popular bottle now. And whereas that bottle retail today, it's expensive. It goes for about $299 US. But on the gray market, the black market, where people are buying and trading with friends or neighbors or whatever, a current bottle, the current release. I'm talking about Pappy Van Winkle 23. The current release, you'll see it for $2,000, $2,500. But my brother was just telling me that because I have it here, so because it has the wax top, not opened, wax top, he said that he thought I could get about $6,000 or $7,000 for that bottle.
Wow.
That's nuts. That's nuts.
That's nuts. Is he a collector too? Is he in the whiskey space as well?
He is. He got me into it. Yeah, nice. It's funny. You call me a bourbon expert, but I think he's more of an expert than I am. for sure. Yeah, but
That is
I love it.
really cool.
I really enjoy it. Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
this particular bottle, are you up for a story?
Sure. We love stories.
Yeah,
People
so
love stories. And if you're watching tune in.
this particular bottle, I bought off the shelf in 2006, and I remember it because I was newly into bourbon. And Pappy Van Winkle, which is really it's coveted these days. People search for it. They enter these lotteries. They sell it for thousands of dollars, or they buy it for thousands of dollars. But back then, they were on the shelf, and it was on the very top shelf, and there were tons of them. And I walk in, and I knew at the time it was a $200 bottle, and I see that it's marked down for $8 to $80. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I take this bottle off the shelf.
Yeah,
I walk to the front. I'd never had it before, but I know it's an expensive bottle. And whoa, that's a great price. So I bring it to the front. The guy rings it up. It's $180. And I said, whoa. So I run to the back. I get the sign. I bring it to him. He pulls a Sharpie out. Underneath the counter, he writes a 1. He hands it back to me. He says, can you put that back? Like, oh man.
Wow. Man.
And then he said, don't worry, I'll give it to you for 80. So I bought this bottle for $80.
Wow. And that's cool. Little gems come along in life. I find they really actually do come along to good people in this world. And that's a great story.
Yeah. So the plan is to open it at my daughter's wedding, whenever that will be. She's 17 now. So hopefully a few years off. But the plan is to open it at her wedding, or if somebody comes along and offers me $6,000 or $7,000 for it, well, I'll buy something else.
Well, you can help pay for a really good wedding or a great honeymoon trip after that. With
yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
So just to foray a little bit back, we'll get back to the whiskey topic. You are a tech guru, and I believe this is really where you do a lot of your professional work. I know that you're pretty prolific on LinkedIn. I imagine you're pretty prolific on a lot of other social media platforms, but you also have a very strong coaching acumen. And I can see it by your personality because you have a way that captures people right away. Charismatic, you speak and you just are able to draw people in and listen. It probably helps that you're like 6'6" or something, for the viewers out there. Zach is about the size of a point guard, taller than your average point guard in the NBA. It's kind of crazy.
As well, that's true. I'm 6'4". I'm 6'4". So I spent 20 years in product marketing for B2B tech, and I'm not technical at all. I don't know technology. I mean, I know it, but I don't really know it, not in the weeds to the depths that you'd expect someone in product marketing for tech to be. But I love it. I love it. And when I first got into it, I applied. I have a degree in philosophy. And,
cool.
There are tons of jokes. You hear the jokes all along, but what philosophy trains you to do, especially when you're studying the classics, is it trains you to ask and answer the big questions and always be curious, right? It teaches you to understand problems and attack them and understand all of the potential barbs that you're going to meet so that you can win the argument. It's the art of argument, really. And so what I did is I started out in product marketing. I need to basically connect the value of the offering, the value of the product, to the values of the audience, what the audience wants, needs, cares, desires, through all these different channels. So to do that, you have to know the technology. So in order to know the technology, I started out just asking questions, and I landed on 3 questions, and I use those today in my business. But those questions are: what is it? At the core, the simplest, most form, what is this thing that we're talking about? What does it do? What's it do? Again, at its core, the simplest form, what does this thing do? And then, why does it matter? Why does it matter to me? Why does it matter to you? Why does it matter to the people who it should matter to from their perspective? And in answering these questions, I found that I get tech. I totally understand tech. And the reason why I love working in tech is often you have technical founders of these startup companies that have created these incredible innovations, and they don't know how to talk about it. They know how to talk about the thing, but they don't know how to talk about the thing in a way that's going to attract people and get those people to buy it and use it and then impact those people's worlds. And so that's why I do what I do today, because I believe some of the greatest things to never happen should.
That's brilliant. I mean, listen, if you're watching this and obviously you're paying attention to this, make sure to really connect and follow people like Zach, because that's a crystal clear message. And I don't know if you know this, Zach, but I actually worked in tech for almost 5 years. I was in the cruise line industry until about 2006. I got out into just tipping right at the start of my mid-30s. And I was looking for something else to do. And I fell into technology with a guy who became my business partner. And ultimately, he was pretty scrupulous. But that's a whole different story. But I did learn a lot in those 5 years. And what I learned was the problem with the tech space, you know, outside of Apple, which is clearly defined, consumer electronics that are high end, that integrate well together, ease of use, and you can describe them in one sentence. A lot of the tech world, people, you know, you get these tech geniuses, but they're horrible at breaking down and selling their vision. And of course, how do you market something if you can't sell it? If you can't tell me what it does and how this is going to benefit humanity, I'm lost in translation. And that's often where tech gets shuffled. You know, there's a ton of brilliant ideas that are probably rotting on a shelf somewhere, covered in a heap of dust. And a lot of them will never get uncovered simply because the idea was brilliant. The communication behind it was dreadful. And that I found to be a massive problem in technology in my time in it.
Oh, for sure. And it's still there, especially in B2B, So when you think about how people buy, first, before people buy anything, here's some philosophy, okay? Because I'm going to ask you to think not so literally. Every product that you buy, especially in B2B, is solving a problem. It's addressing a problem. Now, I used to get this because I would do some training, sales trainings back in my corporate days. And I'd always get pushback. Well, you know, if I'm buying a pack of gum, I don't have a problem. And I say, yes, you do have a problem. Your problem is you want gum and you don't have any. That's your problem. Or, you know, you don't have the pack. So every product, every service, every offering that's put out to market is addressing some sort of a problem. Your full target audience is not aware that they even have this problem. A portion of them are completely unaware that they have a problem at all. And so where I don't know that I want to say most, but it probably is most, where most tech founders and small tech companies and really a lot of big tech companies fail is they never answer the question, why change? They are 100% focused on why us. And when that happens, you have at least half your audience isn't ready to hear your message. And in a world like today, where we're just bombarded with stuff, you're lost, you're gone all of a sudden. And if you persist with that, why us, when someone needs to hear why change, then you're annoying and you're spam and go away. And now you're remembered for being annoying.
Yeah.
So it's really important to understand, even more so than what your offering does, understand your audience. I like to say, become your audience, put on their shoes, walk around for a while, put on their glasses, look at the world from their perspective. Perspective is the most important thing in marketing.
It is, and it's probably why we like the alcohol space, because, you know, we're going to spin this back to the booze discussion now. And cheers, my friend. I just cracked a Belgian wit style beer. This is Blanche de Chambly. So this is from Unibrow, which is now owned by, I believe, Sapporo Group. This started out in Chambly, Quebec. I believe It is near Sherbrooke, so you're along southern central Quebec, close to the St. Lawrence River. And Quebec really emulates Belgian-style beers. And this has been rated the world's best Belgian wit beer. So in this, there's 30 to 50% yeast, and you can see the protein particles cause it to be hazy. There's likely, there's pale malts. There's likely some crystal malts or caramel malts in there that give that almost a honey type color. You get things like coriander, blue caracal, curacao orange peel. There's clove. This is a great summertime beverage. And, thinking of extraordinary drinks with extraordinary people, if you're watching this, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Make sure to share the content. Make sure to comment below. And once again, make sure to reach out to Zach. We're going to have the details of all this in the description of the show. As well, Zach, let's get into the bourbon world now, and the whiskey and the scotch. What do you have there in your hand? Just cheers for a second, brother. Cheers to you. That looks good.
Oh, it's delicious. I just got it all over my mouth too. So I just bought this bottle about a week ago. So here, let me turn on my self view so I can make sure you see it. So this is there we go. This is a Lucky 7.
Yeah.
So it's a Lucky 7. This is called the Hold Up. It's a 12-year bourbon. It's sourced. So Lucky 7, you'll see often or hear about bourbons being sourced. And what that means is when you have a distillery like Lucky 7, which is relatively new, I believe. How is a relatively new distillery, been around a couple years, how are they going to put together or bottle as you see, a 12-year bourbon? How is that possible? They source it and they get it from elsewhere. So we don't know where this is from, but I pulled the mash bill up here. So it's 74% corn, 18% rye. And then 8% barley. So with bourbon, bourbon has to be, there are laws in the United States.
Yes.
And bourbon has to be 51% corn. And there are a whole bunch of other laws. For example, it has to be finished in a new charred American oak barrel. So when you have a Scotch, like Scotch doesn't have to be aged in a new barrel. Often Scotch distilleries will use bourbon barrels. They'll use rum casks. They'll use sorts of different stuff. But bourbon, it must be brand new and charred. You have some where I pulled this one out. This is an Elijah Craig toasted barrel. Getting a lot of, there we go. Elijah Craig toasted barrel.
I've had that one. That's actually really good.
So good. Not so good on ice, I found. This one is definitely neat. But so the toasted barrel is really interesting. It's a toasted barrel is almost exactly what it sounds. Instead of a char, where they may char the barrel for a minute, so it's just burned and charred. A toasted barrel is like, think of making toast. It's just toasted. And so it's a lower heat for a longer time. So they may toast a barrel for like an hour or an hour or two. And it just adds different complexities to the barrel. If you see a toasted barrel, and there are a few out there, but if you see a toasted barrel, that means that it's finished in a second barrel. So in order for it to be bourbon, it has to be finished in a charred new American oak barrel, but then they'll finish it in that toasted barrel. The one that is most common is the Woodford Double Oak. You might see the Woodford Double Oak. And
yes, we have that up here in Canada.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. They don't market it as a toasted barrel, but it is. The second barrel is slightly charred, but then toasted. And that one's just, the double oak is so interesting. It's almost like molasses. It's very sweet. It feels heavier. It's not heavy like molasses, but it's delicious. Oh my gosh. It's very different.
Yeah. And when things age in barrel, it adds a tannic structure because fermentation heats things up. And it'll sweat into the wood itself. And I know that this has a bigger effect on bourbon because I believe bourbon laws, they typically spend a much shorter period of time in oak than some of your longest age Scotch because they're using third, fourth, and fifth use barrels. Whereas with bourbon, you're using a brand new barrel, and that's going to impart a ton of flavor. And that's, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's where you get like your coconut, vanilla extract flavors.
Especially the vanilla and the caramel. Yeah.
And the caramel.
The vanilla,
as well.
especially. Usually the vanilla, I found that the vanilla comes on higher age statements. When people, so a couple different paths we can go here, but when people taste a bourbon and maybe they're not into bourbon and they just order like I don't know, name a bourbon.
Blanton's.
Like a common. So Blanton's is not a, that's a single barrel aged fairly well.
1792.
But yeah, so like a 1792 or even a regular Elijah Craig, right? So if we take one of these, so someone's trying it for the first time, bourbon, it's I believe it's 2 years is the minimum, but that's a really young bourbon. Usually they're about 4 years aged. And then if it's over 4, I want to say it's 4. I don't remember the exact law, but if it's over 4 years old, then they have to have the age statement on there. And the age statement, if they don't have to have the age statement, but if they have an age statement, it means that the youngest bourbon that's in that, if it's a blend, is that age. So for example, this Lucky 7 that says 12, that means that if this is a blend of bourbons, let's say, the youngest one is a 12. I have one here. This is one of my all-time favorite whiskeys, a Rhetoric 22. So this is
like
a 20.
The
yeah, they're really cool. So this is a Diageo product. It's called Orphan Barrel is the sub brand. So Diageo is brilliant marketing, but Diageo bought up a whole bunch of old distilleries, and with those old distilleries came rickhouses that were full of whiskey, that had barrels and barrels of whiskey. And so their marketing campaign or marketing really approach is they came up, we're going to go with the Orphan Barrel brand. And so let me see if I can even read it.
That's old brilliant.
Guy eyes. It's what Orphan Barrel does here at Orphan Barrel Whiskey Distilling. I can't see. This is like the old guy moment. This is really embarrassing. At Orphan Barrel Whiskey Distilling Company, we pride ourselves in rescuing lost barrels of rare and delicious whiskey hidden away and long forgotten in the back of rickhouses. And so all of their Orphan Barrel brands have a fairly old age statement. I think the youngest one I've seen, I want to say, is a 15.
Wow.
But they do some interesting things. So for this Rhetoric, they started bottling this at 20. So they bottled it at 20 through 25. So over 6 years, 20, a 21, a 22, 23, 24, and a 25. I happen to think the 22 is just amazing, but they're all pretty much amazing.
Yeah. Well, especially that aging length of aging, rather, that's just incredible. And do some of them use the Solera method? I mean, there's sherry with fractional blending, and then what they'll do is obviously start. It's like an inverted triangle. So you've got all the first year, to the second year, to the third year, to the fourth year. Obviously, it shrinks down because for those that don't know, alcohol evaporates in barrel over time. It takes the water component out. And, you're looking at about a 2% loss per annum, and they call it the angel share. And this is where the term spirits came to life, right? Because the term spirit was this mystical disappearance of this, this unctuous, beautiful liquid that was aging in these barrels over time. And they would open it up and go, wow, what the hell happened? So they called it the angel share.
And really interesting, it's a marketing angle, but Jim Beam put out a bourbon several years ago called the Devil's Cut. And it's a Jim Beam. It's a cheapie. It's like, I don't know what it costs these days. It's probably $20 or less, but it's a Jim Beam. But what they've said they do is they extract the whiskey that has gone deep into the barrel. So they're extracting that from the barrel and then infusing this whiskey with it. And they called it the Devil's Cut, which I always thought was brilliant marketing when you consider the Angel Share.
Yeah, that's just incredibly clever. And it's funny, even think about the aging category. I know rye whiskey is the big thing up here. You know, rye can be in many adjuncts. The whole concept of the 3 years age category actually originated in Canada in 1887. I learned about this when I was researching on Scotch, because the 3-year rule did not actually appear in Scotland until 1916, but everybody associates the law with the Scotch or the Scots. Yeah.
Oh, here it is. I pulled up the requirements. So it says bourbon aged for a period of less than 4 years must be labeled with the duration of its aging.
Interesting. Yeah, and I thought that. And it's, you know, the whole history behind it's incredible too. I imagine this had a lot to do with the feud with the British Empire being a colony, because the rum trade was really prolific. If you get into like the age of piracy and that, the rum trade was massive. And the British Empire had a huge stranglehold on it because they had colonized most of the Caribbean islands. And they were the preeminent military and naval, well, the naval power of the planet. And that's what allowed them to dictate the pace of the globe. Whoever had naval supremacy controlled supply lines, trade routes. So when the American Civil War happened, or sorry, the American Revolution, this obviously displaced it. Now, did this have a lot to do with the growth of bourbon? Because I imagine it would have.
I imagine it would have too, Rob, but I have no idea.
Well, cheers to that anyway. Cheers to good drinks on a show. You know, this is part of the fun of it. Now, obviously, you can enjoy whiskey with a lot of things. I'm having a great beer here, but the whole presentation is really focused on what you do. And I'm thinking, you know, even in the areas that have legalized it, you know, Joe Rogan would love this. You got marijuana or cannabis. You know, cannabis and whiskey is probably a nice pairing. I know that there are wine parties that actually include cannabis in them now too.
Oh, that's interesting. I like doing pairings. I mean, I have one. So this barrel, yeah, this bottle, it's a Larceny barrel proof. And so Larceny does a barrel proof release 3 times a year. This is one from this year. This is their first release, A121. So
Sweet.
This one has absolute notes of dark chocolate, and I've never tasted that in a bourbon before. And cool. We'll pair these at home. You know, we'll pair this with strawberries and dark chocolate chips. And
that'd be awesome.
Oh, it is insane. It's so good. It's so good.
Do you host whiskey tastings at all? Have you gotten into that?
Not really. I mean, I just with some friends. You know, I'll invite friends over. I have a pretty solid collection. So you know, I'll invite friends over. You know, we'll sit out on the deck and just sip whiskeys. The thing I take pride in for sure is offering my friends or people that come over a bourbon that I know they have never had. I love that. I love doing that.
Yeah, it's cool because you're really expanding horizons. You know, people tend to be a pattern. I know I was before I got into this side of the world. We're going prior to a decade ago. You know, I had everything in wine sat around Cab Sauv, Shiraz, and Merlot. I couldn't tell you anything about the nuances and differences of them. I just knew I liked it. And it's the same thing with beer. You know, I would delve into typically lagers and the odd IPA or amber ale or lagerdale. I didn't deviate outside of it. I mean, if you threw a Belgian wit beer in front of me like this, I'd be like, what the heck is that? I mean, I knew of Hoegaarden. I liked it, but I really didn't know the nuances. And it's cool because you've got a strong depth of knowledge here. And I always think the humble never stumbles, right? And it's always great to share these things. And it's one of those things that because you're sharing different beverages and different styles of bourbon in this case, or whiskey or scotch, you're really expanding your friends' horizons, because next thing you know, and I've seen this being a wine and beer pro, your friends are dragging you out to stuff. Hey, have you tried this?
Totally.
Look at this stuff I'm trying today.
Do you
know about it? Yeah.
I have a friend who I totally got him into whiskey. probably like my brother got me into whiskey. I totally got him into whiskey. And now he loves the oddball bourbons, just total oddball stuff. There's one where, I mean, really oddball. I don't remember the name of this, but there's one that's like infused with peanut butter. He's like, oh, it's the greatest thing. Like, he just loves finding these weird oddball bourbons like that. Yeah, not my thing, but it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool because it's just what he likes. So if I go over his house, I know I'm going to be offered something that I have probably never had, and I probably will never have again.
Yeah, and that's the whole exploratory part of it. This is what makes drinks so special. And I think it's really partly why they're so rooted throughout history. Obviously, for a huge part of it, you couldn't drink water. So people turned to spirits, they turned to wine, they turned especially to low alcohol beer as a form of nutrition and hydration. But, really past the 20th century in most places of the world, well, I shouldn't say most, because I think half the world is still sadly without sufficient drinking water. But for us that are actually very privileged and blessed in the West, we really have the luxury to really embrace this around celebratory occasions as well, and social. I mean, is there nothing more fun sometimes than cracking a Cuban cigar or Monte Cristo, those little cigarillos? I tend to like those things. And you've got a wicked glass of port or a bourbon or a scotch, and you're just sitting out in the deck of a hot day and you're just going, wow, this is just fantastic. If life could be isolated to this moment in time, I could gladly live for eternity. I mean, there is really something ageless about all of this.
I love that. Well, and I have a practice. I know you know about it because you've seen it. I have a practice every Friday, and every Friday I share it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's the boom shakalaka.
Yeah, boom shakalaka. Yeah, so what I do every Friday, and I've just made it a habit for myself and my business, which has been really important after coming from the corporate world for 20 years. My business is almost 4 years old, doing really well, super excited.
Awesome.
But every Friday, without fail, what I do is I look back on the week and I reflect and I think about what went well and what I can do more of. I think of what didn't go well and why, and how I can change that or how I can just get rid of that. And once I'm done with that, and I write stuff out and everything, once I'm done with that, I pour a glass of a rare or otherwise delicious bourbon, and I make a toast, and I toast to my customers, to my clients. And sometimes it's a specific client, and sometimes it's all of them. Sometimes it's a new client. Sometimes it's someone who was a client, a former client. But I think about them, and I toast to them and to their success. And to me, this is the celebration. That whiskey and that practice is the celebration of two things. One, I'm lucky. I'm lucky to be able to do something that I love, and lucky to be able to help people with things that they have difficulty doing. And then the other piece of it is I'm celebrating, because as long as I have clients to toast and clients to celebrate, I know that my business is going to keep going and keep growing. And so it's a celebration. And
what brilliant. Brilliant. It's just brilliant. I'll repeat that again. Brilliant. If you're watching this, Zach has hit on a chord, particularly if you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur. There must be a give back. I do it weekly with the Friday feature, with this show to help enhance the guests on the show and to really bring to light what they do. This is a lot more about them than me. This is just fun to do for me. Everyone knows I do virtual tastings and virtual parties that have really paid attention to what I do. And that element's growing. But you just nailed it. I couldn't have nailed it better. The give back there is tremendous. And, whether somebody's a client or a prospect or a past client, or maybe even somebody you had difficulty with, it never hurts to reach out with a ton of positivity and love and a celebratory aspect of cheersing them or toasting them with bourbon on a Friday afternoon. I mean, I look at you and I think of Zach Sham, it's like Shazam, the symbol there, but it's just, and that's just brilliant marketing on your behalf. I mean, this is just all shows why People should be embracing you if they're struggling with their product or struggling with their brand, to grab a hold of you, especially in the tech space, because you've got this incredible presence about you, but you also have that incredible trait which gives back, and that give back is just incredibly powerful, and it's something that it's an intangible. It's going to pay you dividends, and it comes from the heart. It comes from a good place, and it has to come from those places. And I just think how you broke that down there it was absolutely tremendous. It was moved.
Oh, thanks,
that was
dude.
awesome.
I appreciate it. Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, one of the mistakes that I see entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and even company founders and marketers make is they're scared to share. They're scared to share their knowledge. They're scared to share their ideas. And the fact is that nobody wants to do anything. I can tell you how to do everything that I do. And I've done this before, where if I have a process, I'll write a blog on it. I'll write a LinkedIn article. I'll post on it and teach people how to do this, because of there are a couple of things. One, this sounds kind of cocky, but I don't mean it that way. I own this. I'm great at what I do, and I have confidence in what I do. And I know that
Cheers to that.
Cheers. So I know that with the right circumstances, of course, and the right type of person, and someone who's willing to work and take the action and do these things, I know I can help people. That's one. But also, if I give someone the how, more often than not, a lot more often than not, they're not going to do it. And so by sharing the how, what I am doing is I'm helping those people who will take action. And I'm also helping myself, because I'm showing that, hey, I know my shit.
Yeah. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with confidence. I mean, assertiveness and arrogance are a fine line, right? But I see you as assertive. I don't see you as arrogant at all. I mean, I'm proud to say that I would love to take the task, somebody to challenge me on the quality of my virtual tastings to see if they could do better. I really think I'm sitting at the top of that. And there's a big reason for that.
Here.
I spent the testimonials coming out of the events talk about it. And it's not arrogance. It's because I put a lot of love and passion into this, and I constantly learn and read. I am a humble student of the game. I just keep learning to throw that football better. And I don't speak unless I'm totally comfortable with the facts, because facts do dictate. We're in a world that loves to take the illusion that facts don't matter somehow, or they just matter to fit your narrative. But that's not the case. And the other part is you got to shelf bias. This is the biggest demon for a lot of people. Put your bias aside. We all have it. We're all going to cringe at times, at moments where we're actually our own worst enemy. Kurt Mercadanti puts it the best. I mean, I love Kurt, and I'm going to have him on this show hopefully.
That's awesome.
Soon. He's a big wine lover. I love that guy. I love everything.
Bourbon lover too.
Yeah, well, if he hangs out with you, he certainly is. But he says, your own mind takes you to dark places, and that's when you can push that aside and realize you have innate talents and your superpowers you can run with. You are unstoppable in that field. I mean, don't ask me to sit in the lab and research different strains of hybrids of grapes all day long. That'd probably drive me nuts. Actually, I could tell you it would absolutely drive me nuts. But, you put me in front of a pile of people to talk about it and to cheers and talk about the celebratory aspect, the history, fun facts, taking a group and engaging them and pulling them out of the doldrums, especially COVID. I mean, this pandemic has locked people in a chamber, and it has done nothing good for mental health. And, I'm here to help that. And it's like yourself, you can talk about product, and what to do in the tech space. You're there to help them. Like at the end of the day, the number one reason you're there is to watch their sales blow through the roof with proper product and brand development. It's as simple as that.
That's right, because that's how they will make their impact. They'll put down their print on this world. That's how. I mean, that's why I love tech so much, because you can do crazy stuff with tech. The things you think back 5 years, 10 years, 20 years of what was and where the world was and where it is today. Well, yeah, that's a great example. That's a great example. You know, my wife just found these old episodes on Amazon on Prime of Mad About You, which is a sitcom from the early 90s. And we were sitting down watching it, and they're like, they have the phones with they're like, oh my gosh, when was the last time you saw that? And, there was one of the characters on a cordless phone, and it's like this big, not a cell phone, like a landline cordless phone. It's huge. But,
or they're texting and they're hitting 22 buttons to get the character they want. And now it's this thing's a portable, full-blown computing, video production device that allows you to communicate in numerous ways around the world. It's not text and phone anymore. You can do digital calls, video conferencing. You can go through 1 billion different apps to do it. I mean, it's incredible.
Well, and the speed of innovation, the speed of technology is just making everything faster, everything. And so 5 years from now, we'll be doing things and using things that you can't even imagine.
100%. And you know what's beautiful? Spirits, beer, wine, all stays
constant.
It's like investing in gold and silver or now crypto. We'll get into that at another time, but we're going to wrap this up. What's the best way to get a hold of you, Zach? I know LinkedIn.
Yeah, so LinkedIn. Yeah, so LinkedIn is best. ZachMessler.com. Awesome. So I have a regular newsletter I send out to people. I have one coming out. Usually I send it Fridays, but sometimes a little earlier in the week. So one coming out shortly. So people can sign up there, ZachMessler.com, ZACH Messler.com. And
That's fantastic. This has been an extraordinary session, extraordinary drinks with extraordinary individuals, the virtual happy hour experience with the Drunken Grape, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed it. Whatever you decide to do, once again, a huge shout out to you for being a guest, Zach. Thank you so much. I love chatting with you. This is awesome. I feel we could be here for days. Whatever you decide to do, ladies and gentlemen, have a tremendous day. This is Rob from the Drunken Grape.